My name's Mark Westwood. I'm Technical Director here at the TSC, which I have to say is a fantastic job as a techie. It's one of those jobs you dream of. I'm very pleased to be here talking about drones, which is my background. TSC is pretty well known for its work in the driverless car domain, but we've also got growing expertise in some of the other autonomous modes of operation. So it's great to be talking about drones today. So let's grab the clicker. I'm going to talk about the UK market opportunity for drones. The talk's going to be sort of in three parts. So I'm going to talk a little bit about why the TSC's interested in drones and why we think they're part of the intelligent mobility future. Talk a little bit about where I think the opportunities lie for the UK, and we'll look back on how the drone market's developed. And then just a little bit at the end on what the future might look like. So, in terms of why the TSC is involved, I'm just going to talk a little bit about the technical strategy that we launched last year. It's a technical strategy for intelligent mobility, and it's for the UK. It's really looking at where the UK should be focusing in terms of intelligent mobility. And the aspiration, it's to create an environment that will make the UK a world leader in transport systems innovation, which sounds quite straightforward, but it's actually quite a big job to tackle. Intelligent mobility is a huge market, so I thought it was useful just to give you a little brief on how we'd actually set out to work out where we should focus, because we're quite a small organisation. The UK has got limited resources, so we need to identify where the really important opportunities lie and where we can focus. So we had a series of goals, IM goals, which are things that we think represent the success of intelligent mobility, what a good intelligent mobility future will look like. We then went through a process of looking at what the IM market would look like, and we segmented that and tried to identify where we should focus, identified some challenges, some roadmaps, and finally we came out with a list of UK capabilities, which is where we think the UK should focus. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time on the latter part of this. The website where all this is hosted is linked down at the bottom there. I would encourage you to look on that link and explore that piece of work. There's loads and loads of really good information there, lots of market analysis, and it's there for the whole UK community to use. In terms of what the intelligent mobility goals look like, I won't read these out, but broadly speaking, they kind of segment into two types. There's ones where intelligent mobility is really important to growing business, and there's also some societal benefits as well around saving lives, and we all know that that's one of the attractions of autonomous cars, is that they can potentially going to reduce a lot of the incidents that are caused by human error. There's also things like improving or reducing the environmental impact, and that really resonates with me. There's a little bit of a tree hugger in me somewhere, and that's something that I like to think that we're doing something to improve. So we have a series of goals, and we then needed to look at where we needed to focus the effort within the UK. So this is quite a busy diagram. Don't worry if you can't read all of it. It's just meant to illustrate the process that we went through here at the Catapult to identify where we would focus. So we picked 17 different intelligent mobility market segments. We worked out how big they were, so the bigger the market, the further up the chart they come. And then we looked at UK capability. So what's the UK really good at? What are our businesses good at? What's our industry good at? What are our academic institutions really good at? And we ranked all of these different segments. So we were really looking for things that were big markets, big in value, where we were really good, so up in this quadrant. And we also looked at new markets that potentially aren't very big yet, but are going to grow really quickly. So the bigger the bubble, the quicker it's going to grow. And autonomous vehicles is the one down here. So what we're talking about in this session is this segment down here. So it's not particularly big yet in terms of a market, but we think it's going to grow really quickly. So it's a great area for us to focus on. Now, the interesting thing for me was I was looking at this earlier and thinking about drones, and I realised that the ones that we've chosen to focus on are the ones in the darker purple there. And I realised that drones actually are not just around autonomous vehicles. They actually read across into 5 of the other 6 segments that we identified. So they collect data. They're a communications platform. They enable you to manage data. You can monitor infrastructure. So they apply to quite a wide range of these different IM opportunities. So it's clear for us this is an important area for TSC to be involved with and to try and promote UK growth. So, having identified that, we now need to work out, well, what can the UK do in the drone space? So I thought it was useful to look back on where drones have come from. So they've been around for quite a long time, in fact. So the picture right over there on the left-hand side is probably the first drone that I ever saw. It's a drone that the military use for and then allowing their pilots to have something to practice against effectively. That kind of platform's been around 20, 30 years. Then I think they've become more in the public awareness around these kind of platforms here that we were familiar with from maybe 10 years ago. And the important thing is really for me that they're kind of aircraft without a pilot in. So they're big, and they're big because they probably need to carry things or they need to fly for a long time and carry a lot of fuel. They're big, they're expensive, and in terms of working out how that translated into the civil arena, which was something that, as we heard earlier, I was involved in my past career, it was really a platform looking for a problem, really. So the initial work was really looking at how we could integrate these within civil airspace, but it's a really difficult job because they fly in the same airspace that manned aircraft fly in. So there's a lot of airspace integration issues. They're big. If they cause an accident, it's a big accident. So this was really, for me, I would characterise around the sort of technology push era where we had platforms we didn't quite know what to do with them and the market didn't really exist yet. That all changed 3 or 4 years ago, really, when this kind of platform here became really easily accessible. So this is a DJI Phantom, and other platforms are available. But this is a very well-known one. And really, the thing that drove the evolution of this kind of platform is the thing that's probably in your pocket right now. You use to talk on the mobile phone. So inside a mobile phone, there's a few things that are really important for these things. Normally you'll find you've got a GPS sensor in there that's really small. You've got an inertial navigation system that's more capable than one that I used to carry in a suitcase 10 years ago. And that inertial navigation system consists of loads of little silicon gyros, an absolute miracle of manufacture. And you've also got a really capable processing system, and that allows you to miniaturize all of the really complicated flight control equipment that you saw in the bigger platform. Obviously, costs have come down with a huge economies of scale, so suddenly you can pop down to Maplin's or Carr's or wherever, spend 600 quid, and you can walk out with one of these things, and you can start to do some interesting things. And that's really how I've seen the market change in the last 3 to 5 years, where suddenly there's no barrier to entry, and people are coming in and they're starting to innovate. So the question then is, where is the opportunity for the UK? So the UK government has been involved in quite a lot of match funding competitions. We've funded quite a lot of projects in the platform space, but personally, I think the opportunity there has really disappeared. The platforms have become commoditized now, so we need to look at other areas of the drone space to see where the opportunities lie. We've got an example down there of one of the applications that's often discussed. That's parcel delivery. It's not Starbucks delivery, but I'm sure you could fit a coffee cup in there. The question is, what kind of environment do you need to enable routine use of all these different applications? This graphic over here is a little piece of work that we did last year in collaboration with government. And government asked us to look and say, well, what kind of infrastructure should we be putting in place to support this market? So it's not about the platform at all. It becomes about all the different services that you need to enable these things to be operated safely, for you to allow a little bit of competition within the market. So we've got a whole set down here around enforcement, having a drone registry, having a license. How do you know who's flying it? How do you know whose drone it is? You're probably going to have to talk to conventional air traffic management. We've got compliance assurance, things like traffic routing. And it all kind of relies on a digital backbone, and that for me is really where the key opportunity lies for the UK. It's to build this kind of ecosystem around drones rather than the platforms themselves, and to concentrate on the services that drones support. And I've seen a couple of really good examples of UK companies who've done that, and they've taken a risk and really concentrated on building their service offering rather than their platform offering. So I'm a firm believer that that's an opportunity there. So how do we make it happen in the UK? What do we need to do? How could we enable this to happen as fast as possible? It's worth pointing out that this is a global race, effectively, to build this kind of infrastructure, and we can't hang around if we want the UK to have a part of that. So I've picked out a few of the things that I firmly believe need to happen. So we need forward-thinking regulators and operators. Now, we're quite fortunate in the UK from a regulatory perspective. So the CAA were quite forward-thinking, winding the clock back 10 years or so. They put together a piece of regulation which is called CAP 722. Very snappy title, but basically it tells you guidelines of how you can operate a drone. Quite innovative in terms of regulation, and in fact, that approach was copied by a number of different countries throughout the world. But it's really good that we have a regulator that's prepared to be forward-thinking in that area. In terms of operators, one of the things I'm quite interested in at the moment is what we were hearing about earlier, which is the devolved transport authority approach, which I think gives us the opportunity for cities potentially to have a quite innovative, bold approach to how they might adopt this kind of technology in some particular way. Test facilities and infrastructure is always going to be a really important capability to have. It enables you to get systems out there in real life and trial them and learn lessons around them. And that's really one of the reasons why we were involved with the Lutz Pathfinder driverless car project, for example. It's about proof of concept, get it out there in the real world and learn those lessons that you can never learn when you're sitting and hypothesizing about the impact of a system. User-led early stage business opportunities, again, this is just really reinforcing the fact that it doesn't really matter what the platform looks like. And there's a little bit inside of me, the aerospace engineer inside me, that dies when I say that, because I love the technology and the platforms, but really it's about what they do, not the platform themselves. And the final thing I think we really need to look at is the whole challenge approach. So DARPA used this really successfully to pick on a number of different challenges that they set industry and academia to tackle, and it was one of the things that kick-started the driverless car thing back in 2004, 5, 6. I think there's a great opportunity for the UK if we could get the right combination of organisations together to make that approach happen. And I think we might hear something about that a little bit later. So finally, what I see could be the potential end goal and the prize for getting the digital infrastructure around drones right within the UK. Future concepts of air mobility. So I started talking about some of these particular projects internally within TSC about 9 months ago, and people thought I was a bit mad. And I thought I might be a bit mad as well, but clearly some of these concepts are some way off being near the market. But there's actually quite a lot of them starting to pop up in the last 6 to 9 months. And this feels a bit to me like driverless cars felt back in 2008, 9, 10, when it was still a bit crazy. But I think there might be some momentum building here, because there's things that are going to make this a lot easier than it was back when we saw flying cars on the TV back in the 80s. So it's things like the fact that the flight control system for one of these is actually the same as in a drone, and I can now buy it for $100. Things like advances in propulsion technology, distributed propulsion. A lot of these things make this more of a reality than it's ever been. But making it publicly available is going to require the kind of digital infrastructure that we're talking about for the drones piece. So my case is, if you get the drones piece right, you position yourself to get this bigger prize. So that's really what I wanted to say, and what I think the UK opportunity is. Hopefully you'll hear a little bit more about some of those challenges in the next couple of topics, but thank you very much for your time.